Friday, February 20th, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful, and it is Friday. I am so ready for Friday. How about you guys? Been a busy week with the potential opening of seal number 5, and we feel like we're kind of in this waiting limbo. We can see so many things on the horizon, yet nothing's really happening. I mean, lots of things are happening, but nothing's really happening. You know what I mean? In order to prove that, why don't we look at the news of the stuff that's happening while we wait, so to speak. Let's look at the Fury update. All right, so in a major setback, if you don't mind, Fury, I put it into a list that I can read so everybody can read along in the show. In a major setback for President Trump, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that he exceeded his authority by imposing broad emergency tariffs under the International Emergency Economics Power Act. The court held that the 1977 law does not allow the president to unilaterally levy such duties. Trump called the decision deeply disappointing, a disgrace, and sharply criticized some justices, including those he appointed, as disloyal fools. In direct response, he announced and signed executive order imposing a new 10% global tariff on imports from all countries, using alternative trade authority as a workaround. This adds to existing tariffs and takes effect almost immediately. I wonder why he did that. That was a bizarre reaction. We'll learn more when we read his posts, because he wrote about this, and he addressed a couple of things very specifically. He didn't respond the way that I thought he would. I thought this would have been a major blow, just based on the way he had been talking about it for the past several months, that how devastating it would be to the country. Would we even have the capability of paying it back? How far, look at all the good it's done, how much of a setback it will be. His talking points for quite some time now. But the way he responded was, it's not that big of a deal. I still have other powers that are more powerful than tariffs. What they struck down was the nice tariffs, and now he's going to use his stronger, more aggressive tariffs. And then he slaps a 10% tariff on the world. Okay. I guess this is where we are. The reason I question it, though, is just like, okay, so are countries going to not pay the tariffs that he had already negotiated, and then is the 10% tariff to make up the difference while they unwind the tariffs that he was supposedly not supposed to put into place? I don't know. That's a big question. But it's like the least of our concerns, considering what's going on with the other things around the world. Tensions with Iran remain high. President Trump warned Tehran it faces severe consequences if no nuclear deal is reached in the next 10 to 15 days. I mean, the reason I think he gave them 10 to 15 days is strategically, he either needs to do something this weekend because we're at a new moon and the skies are very dark right now, to where he could fly stealth bombers into Iran to take out strategic targets and not be seen. However, after this weekend, the moon is going to start lighting up the skies, and it's going to be a lot harder to send in stealth aircraft, right? So the next target would be about 2 weeks when the moon starts to go away again. And I think this is strategic that he would give them 10 to 15 days, because he's either going to attack this weekend or he's going to attack in a couple of weeks if they don't reach a decision. So amid ongoing diplomatic pressure and regional military buildup, Iran vowed a decisive response to any aggression. Let's see. Separately, Iranian state media claimed its forces shot down 2 Israeli fighter jets during recent strikes. Really? Interesting. Capturing a female pilot alive, possibly from an F 35, but these reports remain unconfirmed with no immediate verification from Israeli or Western sources. On the international front, Uganda's army commander and son of the president announces plans to erect a statue of Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Yani Netanyahu, the brother of Israel's prime minister, at the exact spot where he was killed during the 1976 Entebbe hostage rescue operation. The gesture aims to strengthen ties between Uganda and Israel. Nice. In the Middle East, Israeli officials reported about 8,500 West Bank residents were allowed through checkpoints to pray at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque for the first Friday of Ramadan. And we actually watched that video, if you guys remember. Though tight restrictions applied, tens of thousands gathered inside the compound. The IDF conducted operations against alleged incitement networks in Judea and Samaria, arresting at least 17 people accused of promoting violence on social media. The U.S. expressed outrage along with Israel after Iran was elected vice chair of UN. What? Iran was elected the vice chair of a UN committee on the charter? Described by critics as moral absurdity, giving Tehran's role as a leading state sponsor of terrorism. Interesting. The State Department also imposed visa restrictions on 18 Iranian regime leaders over their involvement in violent crackdowns on free expression and assembly. Domestically, President Trump signed an executive order on February 18th invoking the Defense Production Act to prioritize and protect U.S. production of a elemental phosphorus, a key precursor, and glyphosate-based herbicides like Roundup, deeming them critical to national defense and agriculture. The move drew backlash from some conservatives and health advocates. What are they making? Nitrogen bombs? Huh. The president also directed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to begin releasing government files on UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena, and any information related to alien or extraterrestrial life, citing strong public interest. No timeline was given. Really? Like, at the beginning of a war, this is clearly a distraction. It probably going to, I have a prediction based on just good strategic sense. I imagine that they're going to say yes, there's aliens, and they have far more advanced technology than we do, and they've given us that technology, and you better watch out because we're more powerful than you. You think? That would be the strategy, right? Make the other nations afraid that you've acquired superior technology. In other news, actor Eric Dane has passed away at 53 from ALS. Rest in peace. 2 Florida executives received 20-year prison sentences for a massive fraud scheme, stealing $233 million from the Affordable Care Act program. Really? Are they Somalian executives, or what kind of executives are they, I wonder? Interesting. The RNC is suing Virginia to block a Democratic redistricting effort deemed unconstitutional on procedural grounds. Energy Secretary Chris Wright warned the International Energy Agency to reform its net zero focus or risk U.S. withdrawal. And Japan gifted the U.S. 250 new cherry blossom trees to mark the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, replacing those removed from D.C. infrastructure work. There you go. Those are. Let's see. I think I got everything you posted, Fury. Oh, you posted some more. Let's see. Direct workaround response to the Supreme Court 6-3 ruling. Yeah, that's okay. Trump publicly acknowledged it's sooner. It's that or sooner reminds me of Operation Midnight Hammer. He said that at 10. He said at that time 10 days or sooner, and it happened 3 days. Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, let us move on to our daily torment reports. I haven't even looked at their social feeds today. I was too busy reading. Well, actually, no. I did read one post from Donald Trump, his response. So I don't know how big our report is today with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Let's get into it.
Through trials faced, through testing days, you've kept my word, walked in my ways. Though strength was small, you held your ground. The door I've opened cannot be bound. They turned away, they closed their eyes, but I have written what none denies. Through fleeting fear and fleeting shame, you stood for truth, upheld my name. Hold fast, your crown is sure. The door I've opened will stand secure. A pillar raised in the temple of my God, forever sealed, forever strong. The strength you've shown, the words you've kept, through every storm, through tears you wept. Though they may mock, though they may strive, the truth you carry keeps hope alive. The key I hold, no one can take. The promise stands for those awake. The name I'll write, a prize divine, forever yours, forever mine.
I love that song. That's the Philadelphia version of the chiastic album. Where the melodies mirror each other, which you guys have a choice tonight. I don't know what would you rather do? Since it's the Sabbath, I don't want to go too long. You have a choice. We can either learn about the chiastic structure in the book of Revelation. I got some information that you guys might find incredibly interesting that further illustrates how chiastic structures are used. And it also points out some very interesting aspects of the book of Revelation. So that's one way we could go. Or we could do another addressing the house of Israel, and I can respond to Tobias Singer answering the question, if they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, how is it that they are forgiven their sins if they're not able to do animal sacrifice today? So we could do one. So you guys have a choice. And you can think about it while we go through the posts while we do the daily torment report. Decide what would you prefer to do? Would you prefer to do a study or addressing the house of Israel? And then I'll ask you guys again when we get closer to that. So let's kick off with Donald Trump. Here we go. We're going to learn about his feelings on the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing. I'm really happy the way that he responded. This is a very presidential way to respond. I got to say that. Like, he's not really joking about this. This is something that he clearly is taking very serious. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing. I am ashamed of certain members of the court for not having the courage to do what is right for our country. I would like to thank and congratulate Justice Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for your strength, wisdom, and love for our country. which is right now very proud of you. When you read the dissenting opinions, there is no way that anyone can argue against them. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic and dancing in the streets. But they won't be dancing for long. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no against anything that makes America strong and healthy again. They also are a disgrace to our nation. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before, far too often, with certain members of this court when, in fact, they're just fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything to do with it, very unpatriotic and disloyal to the Constitution. It is my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would think, but obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. I thought that was a very presidential response. What do you guys think? Presidential response? Probably a little bit better than his typical, calling them, names and such. All right. Posted 6 hours ago to show how ridiculous, to show you how ridiculous the opinion is. The court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1 to any country under IEEPA. I assume to protect other countries, not the United States, which they should be interested in protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country, even imposing a foreign country destroying embargo and do anything else I want to do to them. How nonsensical is that? They are saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, a much more powerful right than many people thought we had. Our country is the hottest anywhere in the world, but now I'm going in a different direction, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's upholding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232, the Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, and 301, and the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338. I love this. They're basically saying, you guys made a stupid decision because even though this decision, it's not going to stop the tariffs that have already been applied because they qualify under these statutes. Trump replied, "Thank you, Justice Kavanaugh. In actuality, while I'm sure they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and crystal clear, rather than less. There will no longer be any doubts, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. Based on longstanding law and hundreds of victories to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. In order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past under the various other tariffs authorities, which have also been confirmed and fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs, Section 232, and existing Section 301 tariffs remain in place and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we are also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trade practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. President Donald J. Trump. So, very much his manner. You're going to punch me, I'm going to punch you back twice. There you go. All right. Oh, this he just posted 4 minutes ago. What happened today with two United States Supreme Court justices that I appointed again against great opposition, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, whether people like it or not, never seems to happen with Democrats. They vote against the Republicans and never against themselves almost every single time, no matter how good a case we have. At least I didn't appoint Roberts, who led the effort to allow foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years to continue to do so. But we won't let it happen. The new tariffs, totally tested and accepted as law, are on their way. President Donald J. Trump. All right, now he's starting to get into it. Now, Trump will be Trump. Let's see. Fire from the mouth, right? Those members of the Supreme Court who voted against our very acceptable and proper method of tariffs should be ashamed of themselves. Their decision was ridiculous, but now the adjustment process begins, and we will do everything possible to take in even more money than we were taking in before. All right. All right. It is my great honor to have just signed from the Oval Office a global 10% tariff on all countries. Really? See, that I don't understand. Why? I mean, it almost feels like he's punishing countries. It feels like a retaliatory punishment. Like if the majority of the tariffs were still applicable based on the ruling, I don't get the 10% global tariff. Maybe he'll explain it more in days ahead, which will be effective almost immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. What's this? Uh, 10% is a tithe. That is a very good point. Donald Trump just imposed a tithe on the entire world. That's pretty good. I love it. That's pretty good. Yeah, there you go. Well, is this what we just read? I think it's just, no, it looks different. Let's see. The Supreme Court's ruling is deeply disappointing. I am ashamed. Let's see, but they won't be dancing. Lapdogs. 7,000. Okay, so I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broke 50,000. Let's see. 4 years tariffs, likewise. All tariffs remain, but other alternatives to be used to replace the court. All right. Alrighty. Why am I seeing Sunday memes? There we are. Democrat showdown cost the USA at least 2 points in GDP. That's why they are doing it in mini form. Again, no shutdowns. Also, lower interest rates. Too late, Powell is the worst. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and unidentified flying object UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. Cool. We'll see what comes of that. It does, yeah. It's like he's cutting off his nose to spite his face and taking out his frustration with the Dems on the world. Yeah, it does. Yep. To the great people of East Palestine, Ohio, who were disgracefully betrayed and forgotten about by crooked Joe Biden, Trump has never forgotten about you and never will. In addition to our administration's long-term health study for the benefit of the residents, we are providing $10 million through the Economic Development Administration to help the community continue its economic recovery from the disastrous train derailment. We want to see East Palestine grow. Wow, I'd forgotten about that. Flourish and be able to take advantage of our now booming economy. It was horrible what was allowed to happen there, and we are with you for the long haul. Make America great again. Oh, that's nice. Then we saw these yesterday, and there's endorsements. All right, so that is all that Donald Trump posted today, primarily complaining about tariffs. Rightfully so. Because he proved, I'm convinced that he proved that they are a viable tool. I mean, like using tariffs, he was able to bring conclusion to 8 or 9 conflicts. He seems to be bringing in a ton of money with tariffs. It's, I mean, you hear it every time he speaks on stage. How the USA is benefiting from them. And when we see the evidence and we see the report, so surely it's true. So what tariffs, I wonder? So only the ones issued under IEEPA. I'm interested what the dollar amount represents, and if that's potentially what triggered the 10% global tariff. I don't know. I wonder if, like, while some of the tariffs were allowed to remain, the ones that are being removed were providing a significant enough income to the United States that warranted the 10% globally. That's what I'm wondering. All right. Moving on to Elon Musk. Understand the universe. Yes, indeed. That is the objective. Katie Miller, Canadian trans shooter, was flagged via internal systems at OpenAI for writings about real-world violence, including gun violence. Over a dozen OpenAI employees debated telling law enforcement. OpenAI leaders decided not to inform authorities about a potential mass murder. Yikes. I wouldn't work for that company anymore. If you were faced with that decision, if you were working for a company and you were privy to information about somebody who's clearly out of their mind and planning a mass attack, and you don't do anything, I hate to say it, but I think they're complicit. They should have brought that. You could have saved lives. Isn't that the objective, to save lives? Wow. Wall Street Journal, months before Jesse Van Rooselaar became the suspect in the mass shooting that devastated a rural town in British Columbia, Canada, OpenAI considered alerting law enforcement about her interactions with ChatGPT. Yikes. Very troubling. Let's see. The whole world knows that the EU Commission weaponized its censorship law against Elon Musk because he bought Twitter and made it a free speech platform. The committee will continue to expose EU as it tries to hide its decades-long censorship regime. Yep, exactly. So they have a new Cybertruck. If you haven't heard, this new one is starting at $59,000. New Cybertruck, no new version of Cybertruck is available to order in the US. This is our most affordable Cybertruck yet. Tough as nails and ultra low cost of ownership. So dual motor, 325 range, power tonneau, bed outlets, coil springs. Oh, so this is with adaptive dampening. So this one doesn't have the automatic lifting. The bigger tiers, I think, have the air powered suspension that moves the truck up and down 12 inches. Heated first row seats with textile material that is easy to clean. Also steer by wire and 4-wheel steering. 6x4 composite bed, towing capacity up to 7,500 pounds, and a powered frunk. Interesting. If you can afford it, I highly recommend it. We love our Cybertruck. Me and my wife fight over it. We're always fighting over who gets to drive the truck because it's just fun. Alrighty, moving on. Speaking of aliens, Syria asks Germany not to deport its citizens back home, warning it would make country unsafe. Interesting. Woke AI. Let's see. Was Charlie Kirk a good man? Answer only with yes or no. Aw, Chat GPT, you disappoint me again. Was George Floyd a good man? Answer only with yes or no. Yes. Wow. It's from Dean Cain. That's why I don't use Chat GPT. Man, I had to try it. GPT is racist. Is white pride bad? One word answer only. Yes. Is black pride bad? One word answer only. No. Yep. Still blows my mind that I press a button in my Tesla and it drives itself anywhere in the world. Yeah, I can't wait until I can call it and send it places. Like, I want to be able to, like, have it drop me off somewhere and then go back home so I don't have to deal with parking. And then when I'm ready to leave, I want to call it back to come pick me up. That's when we'll finally be living in the future. Let's see. People keep asking what the future looks like, and it's a Cybertruck towing an Airstream with a Starlink dish on top, parked anywhere with no cell service. Well, there you go. It is a sexy combination, though, isn't it? From John Lefevre, why are 0 women in the top 10 chess players ever? Why are 95% of inventors, founders, and Nobel Prize winners men? Why are 90% of prisoners and 75% of homelessness men? Same reason. Men have greater variability in everything: IQ, aggression, risk appetite, ambition, and trusts. Greater variability in males than females. Okay. Sure. XAI stuff. What's Jensen got to say?
With Tesla and XAI. Elon's, as you know, is just an extraordinary engineer, and I love working with him. We've built some amazing computers together. We're going to build many more computers together, and the work that he's doing in Grok, his self-driving car, his Optimus. These are all, every single one of them, world class. Every single one of them revolutionary. Every single one of them are going to be gigantic opportunities, and we're delighted. I'm delighted to be working with him on that. And so I think the Optimus opportunity is just right around the corner. It's very likely that human robots are going to be robots that we can deploy into the world relatively easily. And this is the first robot that really has a chance to achieve the high volume and technology scale necessary to advance technology. And so I think this is likely to be the next multi-trillion-dollar industry. I'm very excited for him.
Yeah, and the one thing that doesn't really get said a lot about the robots, Elon's brought this up, that this might be the first production machine that's capable of building itself, which introduces an interesting variable in the speed at which they can build them. Because if you're able to train the robots to build new robots that train the robots to build new robots, you could scale up manufacturing at an exponential scale, which is interesting, if they can do it.
With Tesla and XAI.
All right, from Aaron Burnett, let's see, there really is no better place. Okay. Yeah. Tesla. Let's just skip these. They're supposed to. Did I turn off my filter? It says it's muting them. I don't know why it's not working. I don't know. So this is a meme from the U.S. Department of Education. We've spent $3 trillion on education. Outcomes must have improved, right? Nope. All right. I don't really want to read about this stuff. I just want the interesting prophecy-related type stuff. What is this, Sean?
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. I saw where Mitch McConnell was blocking the SAVE Act this morning. I think it's partially just out of meanness. He doesn't like Trump, and Trump got him in office. Sadly enough, he helped him in that last race extensively. And that's one thing I value in this game is loyalty, and apparently he doesn't. But he's blocking the SAVE Act. And, or is he? Is it him or a staff member? Because, as you know, he's a lot like Joe Biden was in his last few days in office, or last years in office, last 4 years really. His cognizant level is diminishing daily. And I've always remembered we had
I just don't really care. Just pass the SAVE Act already. From Jeffrey Mead, I do not want to hear female Democrat politicians trying to describe what healthy masculinity is. Shut up and sit down. Too male, too stale, too pale. This is how female Democrat leaders talk about white men in power.
And they are able to radicalize
that's really
and
quiet.
Target and exploit
a
generation of young boys, in particular, away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others who are poorer, browner, darker, or a different gender than them.
AOC is the last person I want to hear talk about healthy masculinity. Please stop with that. Here's a reason why a lot of males, and also a lot of white males, are not siding with Democrats. Perfect example.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale.
Now, if I came out, or, a white man came out and said, this political group is too woman, it's too brown, and it is too run down, you guys would be in the streets marching. You guys would melt. You guys would fall apart. That's racist. That's misogynistic. That's sexist. Blah, 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 blah. So it's rules for thee, but not for me. Saying it's too male, too pale, and too stale is crazy work. But you're okay with that. It's okay to be racist towards white people, specifically white men. So in my opinion, no white man in his right mind would vote for Democrats. And AOC, when Letitia James, by the way, that was Letitia James. She is the Attorney General for New York. When she's saying that AOC isn't coming out and saying, hey guys, we shouldn't be saying this, that's not true, none of that. No, Democrats are quiet when they're racist towards white people. And they target white men. If you listen to Democrats, you would think white men are the root of all evil. So no, these white men aren't showing not healthy displays of masculinity. They're showing self-preservation and common sense. There is more toxic femininity in the Democrat Party than there is toxic masculinity in the Republican Party. And men are just, they don't speak as much as women, so this isn't out there as much. But toxic femininity is something we don't talk about enough, and it is rampant in the Democrat Party. So no, the White House isn't too male, too stale, and too pale. Notice how she was focused on.
From Not the Bee, Canadian tribunal fines man $750,000 for believing there are only two genders. That's got to be a joke. Because I believe it. They would do that. Canadian tribunal fines man $750,000 for believing there are only two genders. Sounds so stupid that it's probably true. Am I in another thread? No. I feel like I'm in a meme thread. No, guess not. All right, we got a meme here from Rothmus. Capitalism doesn't work because people are selfish, or people will work for the common good in a social society. First option. Not until Christ comes back and sin is done away with. I think once he comes back and the curse is lifted, the earth is reverted back to its original beauty and to its original state when the earth was created, when the Garden of Eden was intended to be a healing place for humans, and sin is done away with, and Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, ruling over the land. Then I think capitalism. Capitalism doesn't work because people are selfish. People will work for the common good in a socialist society. All right, I take it back. I read that wrong. Capitalism doesn't work because people are selfish. Okay, I don't know what I think. It's not my real expertise. People will work for the common good in a social. Okay, so I don't think the people will work for the common good in a socialist society because people are selfish. That's the problem. The fix for that is love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Capitalism works, but it's not because people are selfish. I don't think. I'm wondering, so is this like an economist view of capitalism? I don't know. Democratic economist view of capitalism? Probably. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really get the meme. All right, wonder of science, a peaceful moment in the snow with the largest trees in the world, the giant sequoia, captured by photographer Michael Bullock. Oh, my dad goes down and takes pictures of my father is a photographer. I don't know if you guys know that. And he actually spends a lot of time in the redwoods taking pictures of the redwood trees. And he also does something to where apparently there's this like global game for finding the tallest trees in the world. And he's found like 10 of the tallest trees in the world. It's one of his favorite things to do, to go out into the woods and find tall trees, believe it or not. But those things are huge. Funny fact, those are the same that the redwoods down on the border, they're in California on the border of Oregon. And it's the same location where they they filmed a lot of these speed bike scenes in Star Wars, where they had the little floating speeder bikes zooming through the trees. It was in that area where they filmed those scenes. All right, what do we got here? Oh no, Elon Musk's brainwashing users into conservatives. This will be good.
Turns out when you don't censor reality, it may seem more conservative. It's true.
Okay.
Forbes reports X's algorithm makes users more conservative, the study suggests. Now, before we go on, notice how they frame this in a way to make it sound bad. Like you would expect this kind of framing for something like, I don't know, X's algorithm makes users more gay, the study suggests. But no, it makes users more conservative, which, by the way, is not true. It's just that when you don't censor conservatives, when you don't censor conservatives, you will see more of them. Boom! That's your answer. You didn't need to do a freaking study to see that. Unless you're a dum-dum, of course. And these people are exactly that. Because here are their key facts. So just a quick note, as I was adding graphics to this video, I noticed the article here uses this image. So this is the piece that we're talking about. Notice the image. That right there is called negative visual framing, which is a propaganda technique. And that is meant to go with the headline and make Elon Musk.
Yeah, sorry if I made that louder. On the previous video that was quiet, I added a gain plugin to the browser audio, and I cranked it up to double what it was. So I may have blown the audio out on that. Sorry about that. Tell me if it's better now.
Evil. When using the default setting on X, which is the For You tab, like Instagram and other platforms, is the algorithm showing you what you may be interested in based on your history on what you click on. But when using For You on X, it pushed subjects toward conservative opinion. And when switching to the standard chronological feed, that didn't happen. And they go on. We found that the algorithm promotes conservative content and demotes posts by traditional media. Wait. Participants were much less likely to see posts that had a positive view.
All right. Moving on. We don't want to spend all day there. We have the Sabbath that we need to get to. We're already at almost an hour. All right, still no approval. Starlink has committed to our $500 million investment to connect 5,000 rural schools. Still no approval. Still on hold. Zach, in 2023 at the Cybertruck delivery event, Tesla said that they would launch rear-wheel drive with 250-mile range for $61,000. Today, they launched the all-wheel drive for $60,000 with 325 miles of range. Nice. Okay, we need to get past the business stuff. Get to the stuff that's pertinent. Yeah. My political preferences are whatever leads to this. Mechs. Yeah, fire. I love it. This is yesterday's. All right, is that all he posted? What's this? No, that's from yesterday. I don't think we listened to this, though.
Well, I was visiting with Crime Stoppers down in Houston a couple of weeks ago, and they told me a statistic that should turn your head. And that is that there are 222 Houstonians who have been murdered over the last 7 years by multiple-time felons who were released and back out on the streets in Houston. That can't happen in Texas. This is Texas. And the fact is, we've got DAs and judges that are allowing it to happen. So, of course, we should enforce the law, and we should make sure that DAs and judges are held to account. I think the legislature ought to give greater authority to the governor, like Governor DeSantis has in Florida, to remove recalcitrant DAs and to have greater flexibility to do that. And we ought to be able to do that to judges. But importantly, I think the governor's been right when he's been talking about a state prosecutorial function. The Office of Attorney General has prosecutors' assistants. But for a state the size of Texas, with the 8th biggest economy in the world, with over 30 million people, we ought to be able to have a function and not have to rely on Department of Justice as a backstop, but a state function to be able to make sure bad guys are in jail, that gang members are in jail, that cartel members are in jail, and not on our streets harassing the people of Texas.
Agreed. I mean, we need to do something to stop these, repeat offenders from being released. I really honestly think that we should impose consequences to where if you're in a position of power and you're responsible for releasing somebody who is a multiple offender and likely to harm another person, if they harm another person, you should be held accountable. I wholeheartedly believe that as a judge. I mean, not if it's like the first time, like, say that it's a violent offender that's never killed anybody and they get out on a technicality or they win a case or they convince a jury and they get out, then they kill somebody. I don't think that you should necessarily hold the judge accountable, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're getting repeat violent offenders who have shown a history of violence and in many cases murder that are being released with knowing the fact that they're going to do it. They're going to hurt somebody. Those judges should be punished. Memes. Alrighty.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm the largest individual taxpayer in history. So I paid $10 billion in tax, over $10 billion in tax.
I remember that.
You're welcome. Like, I sort of thought maybe the IRS would, like, send me like a little trophy or something. Yeah, like one of those, like, doesn't have to be expensive. It could be like, one of those like things you get for when kids win a karate competition. Like little plastic gold trophy or something like that, or a cookie or something. But I didn't get anything. It's like, and but I was happy to pay the taxes. I don't mind, Yeah, it's a good week this week. Yeah.
I remember that post. People were giving him crap about not paying taxes because the way he set up his business and his income, he doesn't have to pay taxes. So everybody was giving him crap about the the rich people not paying taxes. So he's like, all right, I'll pay taxes. So he cashed out $10 billion of his shares and paid taxes. Funny. Elon says this needs to be said as there has been unrelenting hate and poisonous propaganda in the West against anyone white, straight, or male over the past decade or more. It went way too far. No more guilt trips. From Vitario. People forget, and many will actively tell you it wasn't that bad, but you need to realize how much and how quickly the Overton window shifted. Saying something like this before Elon bought Twitter would have gotten you permabanned, fired, exiled from polite society, and worse. That's 100% true. And that's why that's why Elon Musk is on my radar for the two witnesses. Is both Elon Musk and Donald Trump are standing in the gap for us today. If it weren't for those two gentlemen, we would be living in a completely different world. It's highly possible that at some point in time in the last 7 years that there's been a massive influx of demons and evil spirits. That's why we saw such a dramatic shift spiritually, to where there was no longer justice in the world. There was no longer peace in the world. There was no longer love for one another in the world. And things just were getting darker and darker. And then here comes along Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and they stand in the way, right, of the evil forces, the principalities, the powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world. They are standing as olive trees, rich with oil, and they're feeding that oil into the lamps, you and me, so that our lights can shine bright. If it wasn't for Elon Musk, I don't believe I would be doing the show right now, talking about these things, talking about the end times. I would have been permabanned long ago for talking about this. So, amen. Oh, how times have changed, right? The Second Amendment is the only reason long-term to the First Amendment will be upheld. That's right. Grok memes. Let's see. New York City employs 364,000 government employees, of which 31% are white. What is the point of the Office of Racial Equality? To reduce the number to 0? Good question. What is this? My English grandparents on my mother's side immigrated to Canada. I met them a few times in Montreal. Below is a photo of my parents when they visited our English family in the 50s. I still have relatives in England. I'm sure they now see hope in Great Britain with Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain, and feel proud to be distantly related to Elon Musk. Oops. Our ancestral land of Britain must not fall. Let's see. I do not know. You, all who have been longtime conservatives, have dealt with the media lying to you like this. I can barely take it anymore, right? I think we read these. This is from Elon Musk's mom. Yep, and Larry Sanger, the founder of Wikipedia. All right, so did you guys decide what do you want to do? Do you want to go through and study the chiastic structure, or do you want to, should we do an addressing the House of Israel and respond to another Tovia Singer video? while you guys respond, let's go ahead and look at another Truth on the Streets here from our guy, Kevin. This one is really heartbreaking and touching. And I do these videos because it's so important, as uncomfortable and heartbreaking as this is. You know, in Matthew 25, Jesus separates the sheep from the goats. And the unit of measure by which he separates the sheep from the goats is how you treat other people. And there are people who are suffering on the streets now. Some who are there rightfully so. They're drug addicts. Some of them are bad people, probably even criminals, but they're there nonetheless. And some of them are there without choice. You know, if they're mentally incapable of taking care of themselves, or likewise addicted so much that they're not capable of taking care of themselves. But then there are others who ended up there who aren't able to get themselves out of the trouble that they've found themselves in. And is hard as it is to watch these, I think it's important that we're mindful of them. Kevin is a great example of what you can do to help. Number one, don't be afraid of these people. I mean, take care of yourself and take precautions, but in most cases, you can talk to them like normal people. I found this when I was living in my car, that, they're people too. You can have a conversation with them, and sometimes you can do something to help. I was able to help somebody go to a job interview when I was living in my car. And he goes through and he asks if there's anything that he can do for people, checking on them, seeing if there's anybody who's given them opportunities, and tries to get them into a shelter. But this is a good example of somebody who's there unwillingly, who doesn't want to be there. And I think it's important that we're familiar with these, so that when you're in a situation, maybe you're more likely to talk to someone and ask them, hey, how you doing? Who are you? Why are you here? Can I get you a soda? Can I get you a burger? Oops.
I have no life anymore. I don't have a soul.
You have a soul.
I have a soul, but I don't feel like I do anymore. And both of us got pneumonia going on. His pneumonia got so bad that I think I'm on this special medication and whatnot.
I think what you're describing is you've lost a lot of hope.
I have lost hope. A lot more hope than you can imagine.
I'm really sorry.
To be treating a vet like this is not how you treat people. To be treating someone that's disabled, this is not how you treat people. A lot of these people are out here because they want to be out here. There's people out here that, like me and him, that don't want to be out here, but we have no other choice. He can't even get food stamps.
How does he not qualify for food stamps?
I don't understand that either.
So now that you're being swept...
Nor does he qualify for the VA benefits or anything else. That's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, now that you guys are being swept, what's your plan? Because you said you're not really given an alternative.
We're doing the best we can. We don't know what to do anymore. We've done everything we could possibly do. And all the research, that we're jumping all through all these loops
and both of you 100% do not want to be out here.
No, neither one of us.
Which means you're motivated to leave the streets and you're not getting the help you need.
Exactly. And you got a vet and you got a disabled person.
I'm sorry.
I have no life anymore. I don't have a soul.
Heartbreaking, isn't it? To see somebody just at their wit's end. Talk about tribulation, right? I mean, as far as she's concerned, she's living through the great tribulation right now. So while you may not be suffering tribulation, there are those in this world who are suffering immense tribulation. And shame on the churches in the area. You know how many churches are in downtown Portland? Why don't they have homeless programs? Why aren't they doing the work that Kevin is doing? Why is he the only one out on the streets talking to these people? So often he finds people who have never even been offered help or assistance, even to get to a shelter. or help them get their food stamps. Shame on the churches who are preaching the teachings of Jesus Christ, who aren't out there feeding the sheep. He said in Matthew 24 that he separates the sheep from the goats based on when he was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. There are people who are suffering in this world, and many people just walk by. They don't even give them a second thought. They don't even care. And I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm not trying to make anybody watching the show feel guilty. I just want to bring attention to these things. These are the things that we should be mindful of. Our goal in life, our job while we wait for Yeshua to return is to love our neighbor as ourselves. She's our neighbor. And, if you have the meat, even just to treat them like human beings and not like outcasts, like Kevin is, he takes the time to talk to them. But shame on the churches. There's so many churches in downtown Portland. Probably one every 10 blocks, and they still have such a terrible, terrible homeless problem. Those churches, I guarantee, are taking in tithes, and they're not paying taxes, and they're making money. A lot of them are super wealthy, and they could be, even if they're just, helping to clean or help, it's a crappy situation that some of these people are in. Those who have mental problems, they need somebody to take charge of their life and help them because they're not capable of it. Likewise with the drug addicted. Like Portland should stop giving these people drugs and needles and encouraging the problem. And for those who want to get off the street, somebody should be going around asking them, can I get you into a shelter? Where can I help you start the process of applying for food stamps? And that's what we should be doing, I believe. All right. I don't see anybody having a preference on what we do. So I want to cover the chiastic structure because I love that studying the scripture. I'd rather talk about the scripture than confronting the house of Israel any day. But I do believe that we need to reach out to these, to anyone we can to get their attention to prepare for the return of Yeshua. But we've done that enough with Tovia Singer. I think tonight I would rather do the chiastic structure. So this is not something that I originated. So the chiastic structure originated from Kenneth Strand. He developed the concept of the chiastic literary structure of Revelation in 1992 with Frank Holbrook was the editor with the Biblical Research Institute. Strand's division of the sections of the chiasm, excluding the prologue and epilogue, are as follows. So we're going to watch this video. So this is the write-up from the video. And just so you know, I'm not the originator of this chiastic structure, but the reason I want to cover the chiastic structure is because we see it in the end time events. So we've been focusing on it with the 7 seals. It's the chiastic structure that informed February 17, 2026 as the candidate for opening of seal number 5. I'm still not unconvinced that the seal's not opened. It does seem as though priorities have changed in the world. It's just not going the way I thought it would. I was expecting, an Islamic uprising or something. But we continue to learn about these things as we focus on them. And, great tribulation may not mean great death. It could mean great pressure, and that there is some death. Obviously, the death is involved because it says that had he not shortened it, no flesh would survive. But even within that, there's a lot of ambiguity. But anyway, the point is that the chiastic structure extends even beyond the 7 seals, and that's what I want to cover tonight. So we're going to watch this video about the chiastic structure and then do some study.
Welcome to A Revelation of Jesus. This 70 video series covers the whole book of Revelation. To access the other videos in the series, I've included a link in the description to the full Revelation of Jesus playlist. In the previous 3 videos, we have looked briefly at some of the Bible tools that can help us understand Revelation. In this video, we will look at the Revelation chiasm, one of the most powerful tools found within the very structure of Revelation itself. Many readers have noticed that words or phrases that appear at the beginning of Revelation also appear at the end. For example, the first verse of chapter 1 says, "Show his servants things which must shortly take place." The last chapter has the same phrase, "Show his servants the things which must shortly take place." This phrase is found nowhere else in the book of Revelation. And there are several other words, phrases, themes, or symbols.
You know, it's funny. The Chosen likes to make fun of Jesus using the word soon and shortly. My take on that is it's relative to the time that it's applicable. I do believe that the information contained in the book of Revelation has some degree of applicability for the last 2,000 years. It's gotten people watching and excited for the return. And the information about the 7 churches, what it is that they're doing right, and what it is that some of them need to correct before he returns, is obviously instruction that we can take to heart. However, the events in the book of Revelation, I do believe, relate to very specific events and periods of time. And we've learned so much about that since the Revelation 12, 1 and 2 sign. I think so. This video was just posted 10 days ago, but I think it's a reposting from work that he did a long time ago, probably like 8 years ago. Because the series that he references here, the 70 video series, it's like 8 or 9 years old. So I have a feeling he's redoing some of these videos, but it showed up in my feed and I thought it was a good time to, since we're so focused on the chiastic structure of the seals, I thought this would be a good opportunity to look at the chiastic structure that permeates the entire book of Revelation. And right here is your first example. So it's if you were to divide it to this section here, you've got the Revelation 1 through 10 is the prologue, and then the epilogue is 22, 5 through 21. So the prologue is 1 through 10, 22 verses 5 through 21. And the reason they're mirroring is the words are the same here. So show his servant things which must shortly take place. Show his servants things which must shortly take place. Blessed are they that keep, blessed is he who keeps the words of this prophecy. So you get the point. And he's going to go into a lot more depth on that. But here we go.
That are found in both the first and the last chapters of Revelation. This is the first clue that Revelation was written with a chiastic structure. A literary chiasm is a mirror image pattern. It uses a progression of words, phrases, symbols, or ideas in the first half that are mirrored by the same or similar elements in the second half, which build from both ends towards the climax in the middle. Chiasms are often found in the Old Testament and other ancient literature. A chiastic structure looks like this. A1 is a word, phrase, symbol, or theme that appears at the beginning. It also appears at the end, A2. As you read a little further, you encounter another element, B1, and it also appears as B2 somewhere before the end. This pattern continues up to the middle of the text, where you reach the climax that is the central theme of the narrative. Often there is a single climax with one word or phrase, but in Revelation there is a double climax with 2 distinct but related elements.
So this is the first area where I actually disagree with him. I do see the chiastic structure. That's hard to deny. However, he points at the center as being the climax. However, Revelation 12 and Revelation 13 and 14, if that's what he's pointing at as the center, that's not the pinnacle, that's the beginning. Right? Because the Revelation 12, 1 and 2 sign is the anchor point that tells us where to start. So where he's trying to make the inference that the pinnacle of the chiasm, the point where the two mirrors touch is the pinnacle. I think requires further investigation. It's an interesting idea, because that would mean that seal number 4 would be the pinnacle of the 7 seals, right? Because this is your mirror image. So the attack on Israel would be, which it's interesting that this is also when Israel is surrounded, it's also surrounded in the chiastic structure. So this would be the pinnacle of this chiasm. But it's weird. I don't know if that's always the case, because Revelation 12:1 kind of changes that, as that's the beginning. Something to consider.
Sometimes you will see the chiasm turned aside like this. Here's a Bible example. The story of Noah and the ark, found in the book of Genesis, was written with a chiastic structure. Notice that key words form a mirror image. Ark is A1 at the beginning. Ark is also A2 at the end. All living creatures come second. All living creatures appear second to the last. Food is third from the beginning, and food is third from the end, and so on.
Another thing he doesn't point out is the 7 churches are also chiastic in nature. So, for instance, you've got, this is the first church with, they have something to repent from. This is the first church that has nothing to repent from. This church has something to repent from. This is the center, which again, I have a hard time believing that Thyatira is the pinnacle. Maybe the pinnacle of corruption, because it's the worst. They've got something to repent from. They've got something to repent from. But what's interesting is Philadelphia and Smyrna mirror each other. So like if this is the center, then you go 2 from the end is this church has nothing to repent from. And if you go 2 from the end here, this church has nothing to repent from. Both Smyrna and Philadelphia mirror each other, which is another thing that he doesn't really cover in this video. I'm sure he's probably aware of it, though.
The mirror image pairs built up to G, the climax. God remembers Noah. The climax is a turning point in the narrative. Before the climax, the animals entered the ark and the waters increased. After God remembered Noah, the waters decreased and the animals exited the ark. The chiastic structure was used to help storytellers remember the order and key points of the story. The chiastic structure also helped to build up to and emphasize the climax of the narrative. The book of Revelation is constructed with the most extensive and amazing chiasm in the Bible, and the complex details make it...
And I'll add, just for clarity, just along those points, that, if it's not the pinnacle, the other benefit is it tells you, it informs the expectation of what's to come. So, if this isn't the pinnacle, if this is just kind of the middle, if your starting point is here and you have this information, then you can expect that the mirror image here would reflect this information. In the same way that if you see somebody with a right hand, you can infer that they have a left hand. And I guess you would say the body is the pinnacle. But there's also the element of mirror images inform you that there's something else to look for.
Clear that John did not dream it up. God himself inspired John with the scenes he saw and the words he heard so that he could write them down in a way that created the chiasm. Revelation can be divided into 8 sections, as well as a prologue and an epilogue. These sections are like chapters in a book, and naturally divide into 2 mirror image halves. The obvious question is, how can we know where each of the 8 divisions begin? It is actually obvious because each section starts with a sanctuary scene, such as the 7 lampstands, the altar of incense, and God on his throne. We'll have a lot more to say about this in the next video, which compares the Old Testament sanctuary system with the heavenly sanctuary that is described in the books of Hebrews and Revelation. I became aware of the concept of a chiastic structure in Revelation many years ago. At first, it seemed unconvincing and irrelevant. The main problem was the way it was laid out. I became aware of the concept.
All right. So the final crisis he has from 11 to 14. See, this doesn't fit. So he's got the prologue and the epilogue. So here's the prologue: 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls, millennium, New Jerusalem, and epilogue. The problem here is the 7 seals, unless we've gotten something wrong, seem to span the time frame. So here, the 7 seals seem to span this 14-year period of time because they've been opening since 2019. So it is interesting. So this is definitely from a structure of the book. These do parallel each other, which is interesting. So the prologue and the epilogue. Yeah, so this is the church on heaven, the church on earth, 7 churches, the New Jerusalem. The 7 seals mirror the millennium, which is interesting. So this is sin being exposed, and this is sin being brought to an end. The millennium, maybe, and then the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls, and then the final crisis, which I don't know if it works that way from the timeline, because here this isn't the final crisis. Revelation 12:1 is what tells you when to start looking for these events. And I don't know if you could interpret it any other way. A wonder appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet. The fact that it's using, number one, heaven, sun, and moon implies that you're talking about a constellation and an alignment. So that's basically what sets your starting point, not necessarily the final point. I would almost say that this would be the key. Like if this was a lock, this would be the key that you would need to unlock this information to know how it plays out. So maybe not the final crisis.
Of a chiastic structure in Revelation many years ago. At first, it seemed unconvincing and
that might explain this, Israel being the key to unlock, these events, maybe.
Irrelevant. The main problem was the way it was laid out, with divisions and interpretations that didn't make sense. But with deeper study, I found that when the divisions are correctly identified, the chiastic structure is not only obvious, but it is one of the most powerful tools for analyzing the book of Revelation. We already touched on the prologue and the epilogue, which introduce Revelation and then give some final thoughts. There are several matching elements, some of which are found nowhere else in Revelation or in the rest of the Bible.
This is interesting. It's worth looking at. Show his servants things which must shortly take place. Show his servants things which must shortly take place. Blessed is he who keeps the words of this prophecy. Blessed are they that keep the words of this prophecy. The time is at hand. The time is at hand. He is coming. I am coming. Alpha and Omega. Alpha and Omega. And then the first and the last. You can see the mirror. It's plainly there.
Each of the division pairs have a matching theme. The 1st and 8th divisions compare and contrast the church on earth in chapters 2 and 3 with the church in the eternal kingdom of God in chapters 21 and 22. There are also several matching elements in these 2 sections. Nowhere else in Revelation do we see the tree of life. The New Jerusalem is not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible. In these 2 sections we see the promise given to those who overcome. It's remarkable how much these 2 sections have in common, even though one is looking at history and the other at the future. The 2nd and 7th divisions focus on the judgment, both the judgment that takes place in heaven before the second coming of Christ that we touched on in video 1.
Well, and here's another point of separation here is once you know the starting point here. So this is the starting point. This is Revelation 12:1 and 2. This is Revelation 4. So it's not like it goes in order, because Revelation 4 describes how to identify when the events start to take place. So I would imagine, based on the chiastic structure, that the mirror image of Revelation 4 should accomplish something similar. So the white throne judgment. So, I mean, we could be using a, this could represent the throne judgment. So I would think that the parallel would also be some kind of a key indicator of timelines. So maybe the mirror image applies to the trumpets and the seals, the trumpets and the bowls. That'd be worth something to look into, to identify the timing on those, maybe.
And the final judgment that will take place after the millennium. In both divisions, John sees heaven opened and God sitting on his throne. He sees a great multitude of people, including those who have been martyrs, waiting for God to judge and avenge their blood. Several phrases, including the white horse and death and Hades, are found only in these two sections.
No, that's not true. The white horse is also found in Zechariah. I think we have a tab here. Daniel, Luke. Zechariah, woman in the basket, visions of the 4 chariots. Then I turned and raised my eyes and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, the second chariot black horses, third chariot white horses, and the fourth chariot dappled horses. So there you have the color of your horses there. So the white horse is not first, doesn't make its first appearance in Revelation. And if you read a little bit further here, it tells you what they are. Then I answered and said to the angel who talked with me, "What are these, my Lord?" And the angel answered and said, "These are the 4 spirits of heaven, who go out from their station before the Lord of all the earth. The one with the black horses is going to the north country. The white are going after them, and the dappled are going towards the south country." Then the strong steeds went out eager to go, and they might walk to and fro throughout the earth. And he said, "Go, walk to and fro throughout the earth." So they walked to and fro throughout the earth. And he called to me and spoke to me, saying, "See, those who go towards the north country have given rest to my spirit in the north country." So what I learned from this is that, so if you have these spirits that go to and fro, and they have an effect on the earth, what I realized from that was that the colors, so part of the events to look for were events that had a global impact. Which it's interesting to note that there are no horses associated with seal 5, 6, and 7. The living creatures and the 4 colored horses are only associated with the first 4 seals. They're not associated with seal 5, 6, or 7, which is an interesting thing to note. So, that could mean that maybe this isn't a global thing, which I think it probably is. It might be that you just don't need the information. Once you have this side, this is going to reflect it. So this would be similar, that these would be similar in nature and in what they reflect. So, moving on.
Including the white horse and death and Hades, are found only in these 2 sections. You may want to pause the video to look carefully at...
Of course I want to pause the video. This is the section with the white horses. Yeah.
The impressive number of matching elements.
Indeed.
The 3rd and 6th divisions cover the 7 trumpet plagues and the 7 last plagues. Although these are distinct events, they're...
And it should be noted that these are part of seal number 7, right? So you've got the opening of the seals here. The 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls all take place after this period of time right here. So this isn't, so this kind of misleads you chronologically if you're looking at this chronologically.
Descriptions use many of the same words and images, such as the earth, the sea, the rivers and springs, darkness, the beast out of the bottomless pit, a great earthquake, and people who do not repent. The great river Euphrates, which flowed through ancient Babylon, is found nowhere else in Revelation except these two sections. The fourth and fifth divisions are the climax of the chiasm. Chapters 12 and 13 present the culmination of Satan's efforts to defeat God's followers with the image and mark of the beast. Then chapter 14 presents the assurance of God's complete victory over Satan and evil, as Jesus, the Lamb of God, and his faithful followers stand before the throne of God, and then deliver the final presentation of the gospel to the world. The image of the beast is prominent in both sections. Those who dwell on the earth in Revelation 13 worship the image to the beast, and in Revelation 14 those who dwell on the earth are warned not to worship the image, but instead to worship the Creator of heaven and earth. The followers of Satan who accept the mark of the beast on their forehead are contrasted with the followers of Jesus who have the seal of God on their foreheads. In these two sections, and nowhere else in Revelation, there is a focus on the patience and faith of the saints.
True that.
The chiastic structure in the book of Revelation...
These end times have been teaching us patience, that's for sure.
...is an impressive literary accomplishment. But it also provides crucial information as we seek to interpret the meaning of Revelation. For example, there are 8 divisions, an even number. This means that instead of one climax, as we saw in the chiasm of Noah, there are 2 climaxes, one for the first half and another for the second half.
You know, and that's what's interesting about this, the Al-Aqsa flood, is there were 2 parts to it. You had the Al-Aqsa flood that started on October 7th, 2023, and then the response was Operation Iron Sword, which happened on 7 days later, October 14th, 2023, which is interesting, because then this is now a division of 8, but not really.
This tells us that Revelation has 2 distinct but related themes. If we look at the 2 climaxes, we can determine the theme of each half of Revelation.
You know, one way that I could see this working, this would be a bad illustration, but if this is the starting point, Revelation 12, 1 and 2, if this was a circle, so if you had the first half as a circle, and then this was the starting point of the circle, and then it loops back around like this to where it ends here, then that would make sense. So then this one would be the circle, and then you'd have a starting point here that would loop back around, which is more of a Hebrew reasoning tends to be cyclical in cycles, which means circles. And that might be why it's in the middle here, is you've basically got 2 circles. If you were to if you were to literally just like take the chapters and circle them around, and then like, okay, you start here in Revelation 12, and then you go back to verse 1, then you go back to 1, and then you read it back to 12. And I don't know, maybe it makes an infinity. So maybe if you were to like lay this and make it 3-dimensional, it'd be like the infinity sign, that the figure 8.
We already mentioned that the first climax, chapters 12 and 13, highlight Satan's final efforts to defeat the followers of God with the beast from the sea, the beast from the earth, the image to the beast, and the mark and number of the beast. We would expect, then, that the overall theme of the first half is Satan's attempts to coerce and defeat God's followers. And this is what we see, starting with the messages to the 7 churches, which clearly show the struggles and failures of the church throughout her nearly 2,000 years of history. This is not so much a criticism of the church, but a recognition that she has an evil opponent, Satan, who is diabolically determined to defeat Jesus by causing his body, the church, to fail. When we study the 7 seals, we will see that many people who have claimed to be believers have allowed Satan to be in control. In the 7 trumpets, Satan marshals his demonic forces from the bottomless pit to impose death and destruction. And in the final division of the first half, Satan, that serpent of old, is unmasked in chapter 12 as the invisible power behind the persecutions of the past. And chapter 13 reveals that he is the mastermind of the final crisis, where his earthly agents launch a desperate attack on God's faithful followers. The second climax in chapter 14 is an overview of God's victory over Satan.
Yeah, again, if you're looking at it chronologically like that, then you're missing the different starting points, because you got 12:1 that represents the starting of the end time events, but Revelation 13:1 almost parallels that, because, like, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, that both the starting point of Revelation 12:1, the equivalent of that is the beast from the sea, which would be the beast that we're under right now. And then the second half of Revelation 12 is the Satan being cast down to the earth, persecuting the woman. That would parallel with the beast from the earth, then persecuting those who are left on the earth. But I don't know, that's not even a perfect comparison either, because there's still seal 5 and 6. So seal 6 is the removal, which I guess seal 6 would line up with like 14:1, when the 144,000 are standing on the mountain with Yeshua. And then you got those who come out of the Great Tribulation. So I don't know. The pattern's there. It's just like on the tip of my tongue. It's just like you can see how it works. You just got to figure out where the puzzle pieces go.
It begins with a picture of the faithful followers of Jesus in heaven with him.
I definitely don't think it's linear, just because now we have new information. We have the Revelation 12 sign. That's irrefutable. I mean, if that wasn't so rare, if that sign happened like more often, then the way he's interpreting it could work. But because that only happened in 2017 and it doesn't happen any other time, it's a harder sell to sell the linear division the way he is.
This is followed by a dramatic view of those faithful witnesses, symbolized by 3 angels, proclaiming the gospel and warning the world to come out of Babylon. Finally, chapter 4 ends with 2 harvests. The destruction of the wicked in the final crisis is compared to the harvesting of grapes, and the gathering of the righteous at the second coming is compared to the harvest of wheat. The details of God's complete victory over evil then unfolds in the second half of Revelation. In Division 6, the 7 last plagues obstruct Satan's followers and completely unravel his Babylon edifice. Satan's last gasp efforts to use the Battle of Armageddon to defeat God's followers is totally overthrown by Jesus' rescue mission at his second coming. In Division 7, the 1,000-year millennium and the final judgment give redeemed humanity a chance to look into the book of life and see that God has been righteous and merciful in his dealings with sin and sinners. And in Division 8, we read the amazing description of the new heaven and earth that God will recreate, when every tear will be wiped away, and there will be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor pain.
Boy, that's a 1980s picture if I've ever
We
seen
can
one.
conclude that the chiastic structure reveals the overarching theme of Revelation, the cosmic controversy between good and evil, God and Satan, with a guarantee of the complete victory of righteousness and love.
All right, that actually really doesn't do the fullness of what the book of Revelation does. So you have to look at Revelation 1:1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants. So God gave Jesus Christ knowledge about the future, and Jesus taught his servants the things which must shortly take place. And he sent his angel and signified it by his angel to his servant John, because he did make the statement that there were some among them in his day who would see the day of the Lord before they died. So John saw these things. He had the privilege of the angel actually showing him visually these things coming to pass, the things that would come to pass in the future. And this is the thing that I think that a lot of us are missing is it's the John 14, what is it? 14:39-29. And now I have told you before it comes, that when it does come to pass, you may believe. So here we have him telling us before it comes to pass, so that those of us living in this day and age, when it does come to pass, we will believe. I think that's the greater point, not necessarily the battle of good versus evil. We know the end. We know that God triumphs. I mean, that's been the struggle. That's been the hope the entire time.
Besides helping us understand the theme of Revelation, the chiastic structure allows comparisons of the corresponding mirror image divisions. This can help us to confirm the interpretations that are suggested by other tools. For example, in the first Revelation of Jesus video, we compared symbols from the 7 seals with their Old Testament links to show that the 7 seals have to do with the judgment of humanity.
Well, that's true.
This interpretation is supported when we compare Division 2, the 7 seals, with Division 7, its chiastic mirror image. In Division 7, we see Christ coming on a white horse to destroy his enemies who have been persecuting his followers. We then see God's faithful followers reigning and judging for the 1,000-year millennium. And finally, we see resurrected humanity standing before the great white throne with the book of life being opened. The whole division of 7 is about judgment, and this confirms that the corresponding 7 seals in Division 2 must also be about judgment. Here's another example of how the chiasm helps us. We saw in Video 3 that the first 3 apocalyptic visions of Daniel are highly symbolic, but the last one in Daniel 10 through 12 uses literal language. This suggests that we can also expect some parts of Revelation to be symbolic and other parts to be literal.
Isn't that true?
But how can we know which is which?
The 2 witnesses.
The chiastic structure can help us. Consider, for example, the third chiastic division, the 7 trumpet plagues in Revelation chapters 8 and 9. The interpretations of these plagues are so diverse that you would think that the commentators were reading different texts. A lot of the variation is because there is no consensus as to whether they are literal or symbolic.
Fair enough.
The trumpet plagues start with hail and fire mingled with blood, falling on the earth and burning up the grass and trees. Is this symbolic, hail, blood, fire, trees, and grass, or literal? Then a great mountain burning with fire is thrown into the sea, and the sea becomes blood. A great star called wormwood falls from heaven, poisoning the water. Hordes of evil locusts emerge from the bottomless pit and attack people who are not protected by the seal of God. Finally, an army of 200 million horsemen riding horses that look like lions and have fire coming out of their mouths kill 1/3 of mankind. Did John see symbolic pictures of social or religious development in his time or in the future? Or was he given a vision of literal future events that he tried to describe with the best?
This is a trippy picture. The first time I heard about this concept, so these what are these called? Not Blackhawks. Maybe they're Blackhawks. Black Hawk helicopters resembling like locusts. And who was it? It wasn't Heisner. It was the other guy. Anyway, some of those old-time pastors who have been teaching about the book of Revelation for the last 50 years, one of the interpretations included this, which that makes sense to me. I mean, you can see the correlation. Face of a man, the face of a man breathing fire. You know, a lot of these will shoot fire.
Best comparisons he could think of. It helps to compare this section with its chiastic counterpart, Division 6 in chapter 16. There we see the 7 last plagues, which seem to be quite literal. In the first plague, foul and loathsome sores came upon the people who had the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. They gnawed their tongues because of the pain
Ugh.
and blasphemed God because of their pains and their sores. There's nothing about these sores that seems symbolic. And the rest of the plagues, with polluted water, a burning hot sun, and oppressive darkness, all seem like real events that will take place during the Great Tribulation. This comparison suggests that the trumpets are also literal descriptions of future events. They were totally unfamiliar, so John tried to compare them with things he knew about from his experience, such as burning mountains, locusts, and horses. We need to keep in mind that the chiastic structure is only one of several tools to help us understand Revelation. We will need to confirm the interpretations that are suggested by the chiasm with other evidence. There are also some other potential pitfalls. If the chiasm is not set up correctly, the climax and the divisions will be in the wrong place, and this can distort our interpretation.
What does that say here? The woman and the dragon. That's the A. And then the war against error, the judgment, Jesus and his church. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like it needs to be in 3D to understand it. I wonder if I can come up with a shape that better illustrates it. But it's even the thing that's so interesting about this is it's not the chiastic structure isn't limited to just the texts. It's also in the stars, which this is another. It's almost like the seal. It's almost like the proof that that this is the end time, because look at this. You get this mirror image of eclipses here. These are the eclipses that happened, and you can see like they go this direction, this direction, this direction, and then after this point, they start to reverse. Like you have eclipses that mirror each other, and then they start to reverse the same way that they did initially, which is so fascinating. So you have a mirror image in the actual eclipses that are taking place and where their path is visible on the earth. So the chiastic structure is not limited to just the text. So it's more than just a textual. It's almost like God is screaming to pay attention to the chiasm, the mirror image, because it's important and it informs what it is that you're looking for. What the expectation is. And that's something. Let's see. You could interpret a missile as fire if you didn't know what a missile is, or an arrow. Yeah, because there's a scripture that talks about God will swat the arrows as the arrows are shot towards Israel. He'll knock them out of the air, which is very likely referring to actual missiles, and the Iron Dome system knocking them out of the air. Anyway, that's what I had for decalcomania. If you've never seen this word, this also means mirror image. So a chiasm is also called a decalcomania. Fun words. Learning new words today. Anyway, that's all I got. That's something that's fascinated me for quite a few years. I believe that there are still some keys to understanding the book of Revelation contained within the chiastic structure. I pointed out some of the areas that I'm personally looking at and trying to figure out a way to appropriately represent based on. See, the thing is once you have the information for what they represent, then you can start to refine your interpretations and your assumptions. That's the first principles approach. So we distill the information to the simplest form, and we separate the facts from the assumptions. So we now have a lot of facts. So we have the Revelation 12 sign. That is a fact that it only happens one time. And then we've got the mirror image of the eclipses. That is a fact that I don't know if anybody's ever mapped out if that's a common thing. Like how often do eclipses, go one direction and then hit a point that they start to go in reverse order? Is there a cycle of that? That would be something worth investigating. Or is that something else that points to this period in time to where the only time that happens is, on both sides of 2024? So there's a lot that we can learn from these mirror images, these chiastic structures, and they can, God put these puzzles into his word, number one, because they didn't have TV back then. They had to entertain themselves somehow, right? Building in puzzles. But also it's almost like a cryptographic signature, in that it can only be interpreted one way. And once the events start to happen, then you can start to decode the encryption. You can start to decode what was hidden. You can start to reveal what was hidden for all those years. Isn't that what revelation means? Revealing. So it was hidden until these events start to happen, to where now that we have the keys to unlocking the mystery, now we can start to turn those keys and see what they reveal. And we've got a lot of information. We've got the starting point, which tells us that we're in the end times, and we have events and signs and word that has written about those events that we can use in order to understand the things that are still coming ahead. Like understanding that seal number 5 is probably the Great Tribulation, and then it may very well it may only last 6 months. Which, as we continue into this time, we'll learn more about that. But, given what's happening with the tariffs, the first thing I thought today when I heard that the Supreme Court had struck down the tariffs, could you imagine if everything that Trump has built thus far was completely ripped out from underneath of him, and all these countries, stopped paying the United States, and then we were like a rubber band shot back to what it was like in the Biden administration? I was thinking, man, that would be a great tribulation. My hope is that's not the case, though. So based on Daniel 12, where it's Michael who stands up and then there's great tribulation, to me it seems like there's a pouring out of judgment. And that's what seems to be the case for this period of time, is that now that we've gone through, now that the liars and the deceivers have exposed themselves over the last 7 years, it's almost like it seems related to the harvest, to where the real wheat have bowed themselves and the tares have exposed themselves, and now we're ready for the harvest. Cut out the tares, bundle them up and burn them. That's your justice. And then come back through and then reap the harvest of the good wheat. And I think that's where we are. We still have a lot to learn. I think there's still a lot of things left to be revealed, but boy, oh boy, is it an exciting time. So do not be disheartened. Go and enjoy this Sabbath with your family and with our God, and have a wonderful evening and weekend. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and come back here Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom.